Good morning, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for August 29th, 2022, around 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about today, including the potential for multiple tropical cyclones to be forming over the next several days in the tropical Atlantic. We have a storm alert out there. We've got storms coming, so let's go and jump straight into everything. Taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this morning, we have several things ongoing right now. First of all, in the Caribbean, we do have a disorganized area of shower and thunderstorm activity now to the west of Jamaica. This isn't really expected to do much, but it is just worth monitoring as the Hurricane Center does have this area under a 20% chance over the next several days. We've got a slew of systems out here, including 92L, 91L, and a new wave coming off the coast of Africa today. If you look at the graphical tropical weather outlook from this morning, we notice that we have several systems ongoing right now. The primary focus of this video is going to cover Invest Area 91L out here in the central tropical Atlantic and what threats it might have towards portions of the Leeward Islands over the next several days and potentially the southeast U.S. or Bermuda. Now, if we look here at Invest Area 91L this morning, we notice that there's a disorganized area of shower and thunderstorm activity really stretching several hundred miles here. We notice that we have this very elongated area of multiple vorticity centers and just overall broad mess. And with that being said, this is a very hard and tricky thing to actually forecast because the models are picking up on just one area. I believe it's the central area here that the models are picking up on. But if we get any storm that forms further south or further north, it's going to have implications track and intensity wise. So a lot to kind of keep in mind over the next several days, but this is going to take a while to come together here. If we look at some of the drops on data that was from the upper level aircraft reconnaissance from yesterday, we notice how that the mid and upper levels here are pretty dry. There's not a lot of relative humidity up there, really just not much. And that's really indicative that, again, the environment is not necessarily favorable for tropical cyclone formation, at least as of this moment. It's still going to take several days. And one of the other problems that I'm also seeing here is if we notice here at the surface, we've got winds from southwest to northeast, and then aloft here we got winds that are from the south and blowing towards the north here, or from winds that are north blowing to the south. And so we've got southerly winds here, and we've got northeasterly winds at the surface. That's a problem because we've got shear in this area, and we notice that there is a broad area of shear. And that's not really going to be helping our system over the next several days. We can actually visualize this better on the HWRF model. This is the hurricane specific model. This is the 60 run valve for 2 a.m. this morning, the analysis period. We notice what's happening. We've got this big tropical upper tropospheric trough right now centered over the north part of the central Atlantic. And what this is doing is imparting a lot of shear over top of our system right now and not really allowing much to actually happen. Now, this shear stays around for several days. This is here by Wednesday. This isn't really changing. Thursday, it is starting to change. We're starting to see the orientation of this upper low change, and we're starting to see more outflow production with this invest here. And with that being said, that is going to increase moisture, but we still notice that even by Thursday morning, we're still dealing with a lot of dry air being pumped around. The other thing is, even though the shear will probably be lessening by Thursday, we still have to remember that this is a broad area of circulation, and the broadness of this circulation is going to ingest in a lot of dry air. So this is still going to take a few days, really. It may take until the end of this week to actually get anything classifiable as a tropical depression or storm. Now, eventually here on the HWRF, this does eventually come together by Saturday, and we could be dealing with a storm somewhere near the vicinity of the Leeward Islands sometime this weekend. The HMON forecast seems to concur that this will be a viable solution, at least, that again we have a weak depression or storm here sometime by Saturday morning. Now, there's a lot of complicating factors, and the steering is going to get very complicated, so stick with me here. Now, this is the GFS forecast. This is the 060 run valve for 2 p.m. this afternoon. We're looking at the 500 millibar geopotential heights here, the height anomalies. So basically, how strong is the ridges and the troughs in the atmosphere? Well, right now, we've got a broad area of low pressure across the central and eastern part of the tropical Atlantic, which is going to allow our storm to gain at least a little bit of latitude over the next several days. And then we've also got this trough right here that is currently over the Canadian prairies and Minnesota that is going to be sliding eastward over the next several days. We notice how this actually begins to force our storm considerably more towards the north. At this point, it's going to be kind of along that trajectory, moving towards the north. However, what ends up happening within 5 days is that this ridge tries to build back in, at least temporarily, but we've got this other trough up here that is also sliding eastward and going to be breaking down this ridge. And with that being said, this actually breaks down the ridge, and depending on the storm location at this point, it is certainly possible that we could get a storm that tries to sneak a little bit towards the north and eventually rounds that ridge out here and turns harmlessly away from sea. This is indicated by both the European 0Z run and the GFS 06Z run. So this is indicated on both of these model forecasts that that's what happens. However, it's a little bit more complicated than just, oh, this is what the model shows, so this is what's going to happen. We do have this building ridge after some time, and if our storm is weaker at this point and not as strong as what both models indicate, we could have a storm that tries to sneak a little bit further towards the west and actually misses this trough connection here because it's only a very short-lived window. We notice that eventually that ridge does build back in after some time, and so if that trough begins to erode, or that ridge begins to build in rather, that could be a problem. Now, here on the model forecast, we notice that the GFS ensembles indicate an area of low pressure up here. This is actually 91L way up here in the model forecast, which continues to allow for a very weak ridge. But again, if we have a storm that's, weaker and that's in here, it could get a little bit further west and could be a threat potentially for the Bahamas and the southeast U.S. Now, if we look at this here on the European ensembles, we notice that generally speaking, we have the same type of idea here that sometime by next week, we could be dealing with a system near the Turks and Caicos or Bahamas or in the Southwest Atlantic. And there's quite a large variability here. We notice that generally speaking, we have a storm that could be as far north as near Bermuda, or storms that are down here somewhere along the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas, and potentially threatening Florida. So there is a wide range of possibilities, and of course, there is a very real chance that this will turn harmlessly away out to sea. And of course, it is, going to be mentioned here that we do have another system behind that that eventually will be potentially developing, and the future of 91L is going to dictate the future of this system as well. Now, overall, in terms of the upper level environment, again, very favorable for strengthening as this approaches the Leeward Islands and beyond. And so the further west this actually gets, the more intense it is going to be able to become. We notice that generally speaking, throughout the entire forecast period, we have an upper level anticyclone that's going to be positioned close by to our storm. And so we'll be a little bit displaced, but still is going to allow for some intensification. So I would not be surprised that this would become a hurricane, or our first hurricane of the season, after it passes the Leeward Islands and begins to strengthen from there. Again, the HWRF and HMON forecast, or hurricane-specific models, at least are not calling for that bullish intensification yet, which is certainly a good thing. But this could still be pretty close to the Leeward Islands here within the next several days. But either way, right now, there is no impact risk that is expected. There's just too much uncertainty. And with that being said, it's not wise to go ahead and add any elevated impact risk for anyone, because there is the potential that we may have a system that's way far north over here and instead, of down here. So there's going to be a lot to monitor over the next several days, but go about business as usual. But do understand that this will be changing from day to day, so it is wise to continue to check back. And of course, I will keep you updated here. All right. Now, that being said, of course, today is the 1-year anniversary of Hurricane Ida. Of course, this was a very devastating storm that impacted portions of Louisiana last year around this day. And of course, I was down there in Laplace, Louisiana, covering Hurricane Ida. So I do have a video on that, and I'll link it up in the cards up above around this timestamp right now. But otherwise, of course, if we have another hurricane this year, I'll be down there and, I'll be getting all the footage and the data. So if you do want to see that and do want to join along for me with the chase, make sure to hit that subscribe button and make sure to join the channel memberships. All right. So that being said, I do hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley, and I'll be talking to you guys again some more tomorrow.